Welcome to Eye on Parenting. Today's topic, sleepovers. They've always been popular, but what if you barely know the family your child wants to sleep over with? Parenting expert and Time to Play magazine contributor Shannon is here with some simple tips to make sure your child remains safe and at the same time gives you peace of mind. And also, of course, Shannon, we want to make sure that they have fun and they feel comfortable because this is a huge deal.
Yes, it is.
But I have very fond memories. I mean, growing up, we had a ton of sleepovers, people at our house, we went to other houses. What's the ideal age that you can let your child start having sleepovers?
You know, in researching this, I found parents who were starting at 3, which seems a little young to me, but really it's about you know your child best. So on 5 or 6, they start to make the ask. So if before then, maybe they have some sleepovers with family and get used to the exercise and they get used to the comfort that you are going to pick them up in the morning, which is a little bit of the fear factor for kids. So it really is based on your child and their independence level.
And it's interesting because there's so many things that you have to think about, which of course as a child you're going off, you're having fun, you don't realize all the things your parents are taking into account.
Right.
But something really important to look at is the home that your child is going to be spending the night in. And they could have a very different set of values, a very different way of doing things.
Yes. Is
that a deal breaker? Because I mean, how do you relate that to your child if it is?
It can be, and really your parenting role, the main priority is for you to be comfortable with whoever you're entrusting your child to. So be familiar with the home, make sure your child's familiar with the home. But what's interesting is the type of questions of parenting. It used to be, do they have firearms? Now a lot of the questions are, do they have access to the internet at your house? Because we don't have that at my house.
Right.
So the questions have evolved a little bit in terms of what's a priority for parents.
Or like what your kids, I mean in terms of other things to ask, you know, what your kids are allowed to watch, I would guess, you know, even in terms of eating.
Video games.
Parents can be really strict about what their kids can and can't have to eat.
Yeah.
All the things you need to take into account. What about a co-ed sleepover?
You know, it's interesting because if there are other siblings in the house, it's automatically a co-ed sleepover, right? So again, this is based on your comfort level, but really what we recommend is no more children than they're actually the age of the child. So if my daughter's 5, if it's a group sleepover, no more than 5 girls all together, which seems like a lot to me already. I don't think I'm ready for that yet. But you know, it's about the age of your child, and it's a personal parenting choice. For me, probably at that age, I wouldn't be comfortable with a co-ed sleepover, but someone might have an older brother, and that's something to take into account.
It's a good point that they're going to be there no matter what. How often can you check in with your child, and how often should you check in with your child?
Right, so we talk about our great memories of sleepovers, and none of them involved a parent hovering and helicoptering in the room. So that's a little bit of a piece for parents to get comfortable with. But in terms of you checking in on your child who's actually sleeping over someplace else, you know, technology is like a Skype, for instance. If your child has a panic moment at someone else's house, they can quickly, with the host parent, log onto the computer and see you for a minute, and perhaps avoid that late night drive over there to pick up your child. So there's lots of different virtual ways to check in with a child, phone calls, those types of things, but comfort level and try to be cool.
What about ground rules? Do you have to set the ground rules before they go?
I think you do, especially with the other host parents, but definitely for your children, and manners is a big part of it. So, and that should happen every day in the home. So don't try and cram all the manners and how to be a good guest into your child's brain on the drive over to the house. So they get nervous that they're going to disappoint another grown-up as well. So some ground rules are good, but really everyday stuff.
And what about privacy? Because privacy can be really important for both the host family and for you know, your kid going somewhere. I mean, what do they need to know about privacy issues?
It's important to share some of those things. Like if your child has a particular way that they like to handle their bedtime or restroom routine, just share that information with the parent. They want to be sensitive. They don't want the child to be uncomfortable as well. But also let your child know they're in a group dynamic. So some of those things changes, but they need to respect personal space as well.
More is more in this case. More information, the better. So your main tips, let's run through them for parents at home. You say, first of all, talk to those parents, the other parents.
Ask the questions that sometimes social boundaries you wouldn't ask in a normal setting, but again, you're putting your child in their care. It's totally okay to be appropriately asking questions about their home and the dynamics in the home. Okay,
and the way they do things. You also say, leave a lot of lights on.
Yes.
Why?
Well, as we know, people can trip in the dark, and we also want to make sure little kids don't get spooked, but also maybe give them their own little flashlight. Maybe that's a great little gift you can give all the campers as they come over to sleep out so that they feel comfortable and they're not spooked by the darkness.
You say plan a wind down activity. You mean they're not supposed to stay up till all hours of the night like we used to do?
No, not all the rules get to be broken, but a wind down activity is good, and it can be a story time if they're younger that the parent sort of narrates. It could be a show that they love, but something that lets them know that the evening is coming to a close and morning will be here soon.
Most importantly, for everyone involved, set a pickup time.
Yes, for everybody. It's really important for the kids, actually, to know that you are coming, there is an end to this, and that they will return to their normal routine. But also for the host parent, they need to know when they're going to get back to their normal life, when the cleanup begins. And so it's a really good starting place for kids.
Some great tips. I'm making notes because I know this day's going to be here before I know it. Shannon, thanks. Always great to have you here. And for this week's demo, CNET's Dan Ackerman shares some cool ideas for sleepovers that are both kid and parent friendly.
Get ready to feel the power of 6 different legends. The power of Shazam!
I've got some video game ideas for your slumber party. First up, Batman, the Brave and the Bold. If you're used to kind of that dark, brooding Batman from the recent movies, this is a little bit more like the lighthearted Batman from the Super Friends or the 60s TV series. This is basically a side-scrolling action game where you play as Batman and a friend of yours can actually jump in cooperatively and pick up a controller and play as one of the other heroes like Plastic Man or Robin or Hawkman. And unlike kind of that dark Batman we've seen a lot recently, these guys crack jokes while they're fighting the bad guys.
I can't hear you over the sound of how awesome I am.
It's basically an action game, not a lot of depth, not a lot of sophistication here, but it's good for a lighthearted sort of party romp. Next up is another classic set of characters. It's Scooby-Doo, and they are in the spooky swamp this time. Now, if you're familiar with the classic Scooby-Doo cast, you may be a little disturbed to find that they've all been sort of reimagined as young kids here, too young even to get a driver's license to drive the Mystery Machine. If you played any of the very popular Lego games, like Lego Harry Potter or Lego Star Wars, you're going to find this pretty familiar. You and a friend can each pick up a controller and pick one of the popular Mystery Gang characters, and then you explore a spooky swamp, a haunted alpine lodge, a deserted desert town, and you solve mysteries and fight bad guys. It's pretty much an equal mix of action and exploration and puzzle solving. Last up, we've got Disney's Guilty Party. Now, the name is a play on words because it's a party game, which means 4 people can play at the same time, and you're also a detective trying to find out who the guilty party is. It plays a lot like the classic board game Clue in that when a mystery happens or a crime is committed, you and your friends have to explore the crime scene, look for clues in the different rooms, interrogate the suspects, and then mark off clues that you find in your detective's notebook. Once you think you have enough clues, then you can accuse the suspect, and if you found all the facts correctly, well, then you found the guilty party. For Eye on Parenting, I'm Dan Ackerman from CNET.com with some video game ideas for your slumber party.